Lucas Richman is joining us all the way from Bangor, Maine. Bangor, Maine. There is so much to say about Lucas that I'm not even sure I know where to start. Currently, Lucas is the music director of the Bangor Symphony Orchestra in Maine, and prior to that was the music director of the Knoxville Symphony Orchestra in Knoxville, Tennessee. And prior to that was and correct me if I'm wrong, the assistant conductor of the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
Lucas he is the conductor's conductor and an incredible composer. Grew up having a great relationship with Leonard Bernstein. He has a relationship with John Williams, composers, of course, that we know and admire. He is an incredible composer himself, and I'm sure, and if he doesn't, I will invite him to share about his composition and his work. He has been the conductor for many cinematic features that you have most certainly seen. And I'm sure he'll tell all about this journey, but and there's so much more to tell. He's a Grammy Award winner. Grammy Award winner. I mean, there's so much, and but I won't waste any more time of you hearing me because we'd like to invite Lucas. If all of you, my friends, will remain muted throughout his presentation, that would be greatly appreciated. If you do have a question throughout, please feel free to type it in the chat and I'll relay to him. And at the end, we're going to have a fair amount of time to ask some questions. So, Lucas, hi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. What a delight to speak with you. Any opportunity that I have to talk just about myself is a joy. No, I'm joking. So Brian has asked me to speak about music and life as a composer and a conductor. And I will be, I thought I'd perhaps just talk about the journey of music as a composer and a conductor, and how I got to Bangor, Maine a little bit, and what do we do in a time when making art is a very difficult thing to do. So just a brief background, Brian read a little bit about my resume. I'm originally from Los Angeles. I grew up there and got a degree at UCLA in violin and a master's at USC in conducting. But I call myself a Bruin at heart. So no offense to the Trojans out there. I was conducting, I really, growing up in LA, had my feet in both the worlds of commercial music and classical music. So I was very involved in the classical as a violinist and then a conductor, working, doing educational concerts for the LA Philharmonic. And at the same time, I was conducting musical theater and started doing more film. And the idea of where do I want to go? What do I want to do? I've always loved classical music, and my training extended back to my time when I have 3 summers at the Boston University Tanglewood Institute, Tanglewood in Lenox, Massachusetts, the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Really kind of heaven on earth for young music students and for the audiences that come every summer. So I've always wanted to have classical music in my life, but I also love the storytelling aspect of what film and musical theater have to do. And in my journey, I've come to appreciate even more the time that I was able to spend with Leonard Bernstein as a student, I was in, let me see if I can do this properly. This is me with Leonard Bernstein in 1987. And I was asked, at the time, I was conducting the YMF, the Young Musicians Foundation debut orchestra in Los Angeles. And I was asked by John Green, who you may know as the composer of Body and Soul. He had been the head of music at MGM Studios, and he was a prominent board member with the Young Musicians Foundation. He was also very big with Harvard, and this was a benefit for the Harvard, Southern California, Harvard Radcliffe Alumni Association at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And the evening was in honor of Bernstein. So we did a whole program featuring music of Leonard Bernstein. If you would make sure that you're all muted. So there I was at age 23 conducting Bernstein's music in front of Bernstein. And it went really well, I'm very glad to say, to the point where I was invited. I got a call from his manager a couple weeks later, and his manager said, "Lucas, you need to apply to the Schleswig-Holstein Music Festival." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "Lucas, you need to apply to the Schleswig-Holstein Music Festival." So I did, and I got a round trip ticket to go to Germany and attend master classes and be a part of this festival, ultimately where Bernstein chose me, one out of 4 conductors, to go on tour with him, conducting in concerts with this brilliant young orchestra in all over Germany and in Moscow and London. I'm going to play for you a little bit of a clip of one of the first times that I had some quality teaching from Leonard Bernstein. In 1982, I was in the Los Angeles Philharmonic Institute. So I was 18 and I was a lot skinnier. And I was, so the LA Philharmonic Institute was headed by Leonard Bernstein as the artistic director, and I was playing in the orchestra, but I was also a conducting student and had this opportunity to participate in a master class. And in this master class, we're going through the music of Johannes Brahms. This is the, let me see. There we go. So there are 2 pianists, so it's not full orchestra in this context. 2 pianists playing a reduction of the score, and Bernstein, you'll see, is watching me conduct. And so here is the beginning of that. That's me on the left, and there's Bernstein, cigarette in hand. So that's just a little clip. The clips I'm showing you this evening are on my YouTube channel. So the full, this is actually a 45-minute masterclass, which is, I feel very fortunate to have this, have had it captured in this way. And I'll play you now the clip from the tour that in 1988, Bernstein chose me, as I said, to go on tour as one of the conductors. And this concert we did at the Royal Albert Hall in London. So it was broadcast as part of the Proms Festival. And this is how it opens. Oh.
All three of the strands of this year's proms: words, visiting orchestras, and young musicians. Leonard Bernstein conducted
and that's me over on the right.
Festival Orchestra in his own Songfest, which was inspired by American poetry. But we begin with a student orchestra playing under a student conductor, and appropriately the work is the Brahms Academic Festival Overture.
So he goes out to say some words, to talk to the audience, and I'm backstage very nervous because I'm about to conduct.
Ancient and honorable.
And then he spoke for a bit.
Also,
and then it was my turn to come out. Let me just get it to that place.
He's not only a conductor,
Oh.
Well, Leonard Bernstein setting the scene for young Lucas Richman to conduct the Brahms Overture. Lucas Richman is not only a conductor, but I see he gained a degree in violin performance at the University of California, as well as studying conducting with, amongst others, Pierre Boulez. Here he is to conduct the Academic Festival Overture by Brahms.
I was 24. This is the same piece that I had done in the masterclass. There's a terrific orchestra. Just around that time, I looked up into the woodwind section, and I realized that Bernstein himself was sitting next to the oboes with his bright jacket on. And I thought, oh my goodness, he's watching me this entire time.
Lucas, I have to ask. I have to ask. What in the world were you feeling in that moment? I mean, literally the best, and you're 24 years old, and you're conducting. What are you feeling in that moment?
It was quite extraordinary. I was very honored, and being having loved musical theater throughout high school, I was very well aware of his shows, not only West Side Story, but A Wonderful Town and On the Town. And as a high school senior, I played Ozzy in On the Town. So there I was, meeting this amazing, I mean, just like the epitome of Western classical music. And not only meeting him, but learning from him. And the reason I bring him up in this way is because everything that he did was as he taught in everything he did. He was a teacher. If he was composing, if he was conducting, if he was teaching, if he was playing the piano, if he was composing, he always wanted to convey something about the power of music. And I've taken that very as a very powerful message in my own musical journey. The connection between, music as a language, as you know, is universal. Without knowing anything about music, a person can understand what the intent of the music is. And that's an extraordinary thing. And for us to, as musicians, to be able to have the ability to create music and perform music that touches us in a way that words cannot, it's a blessing, and it's a gift. And so to be able to do it on the highest levels like that, and I've been very fortunate throughout my life to make music on some very, very high platforms, shall we say. Along with that, I just want to tell a little story. You know the American composer Aaron Copland? So Aaron Copland, you might know from his music for Rodeo, and Fanfare for the Common Man, and Billy the Kid, and a whole host of incredible pieces that defined the American sound to composers in the 20th century. When I was a little kid, I was kind of precocious, and I was reading the biographies of composers. This is around when I was 5. And when I would get to the end of the Bach, Mozart, Haydn, the composer was dead. And so I thought, in order to be a composer, you have to be dead. I was 5. So when I read the biography of Aaron Copland, I got to the end, and at the time, he was very much alive. So I ran to my father and I said, Daddy, I want to write a letter to Aaron Copland. And my father said, Lucas, I don't know if I can find, I can't find his address. I don't know. Daddy, I want to write a letter to Aaron Copland. So my father found his address, I think through the Writers Guild or something, Directors Guild. And I wrote a letter, and my parents said, Lucas, don't expect an answer back. He's a very busy man. He's the icon of American music, and just don't be disappointed. 6 weeks later, I got a postcard back from Aaron Copland. And in this postcard, he said, Dear Lucas, I received your letter and thought it was very fine. Thank you for your letter. I thought it was really fine. Good luck in your composing. Your friend, Aaron. Now, for this composer, icon of American music, to reach out all the way across the country to this little 6-year-old boy in the San Fernando Valley, with this little bit of encouragement, was extraordinary. And I take that to heart, and I think about that as a very important thing for me to be able to do when I'm engaging with the up and coming generations, passing along what is important about music, and the fact that there's a long line of incredible music makers. And when I was at Tanglewood, I had an opportunity to meet Aaron Copland, and this is from 1980, and I was 16 there. So this is 10 years after he had sent the postcard. He did not remember having sent the postcard. I did ask him, but he was 80 at this point, so I'll forgive him for not remembering. Being involved in classical music, I was really enmeshed in the top of that line. I also mentioned to you earlier that I had been with the Young Musicians Foundation debut orchestra, and one of the people very involved in this organization, as somebody who had been very supportive of the organization and also performed with the YMF Orchestra was John Williams. So that began what has been a 35 some odd year relationship in which I've had the honor of knowing and working with and for Mr. Williams, to the point where he invited me to be conduct Star Wars in Concert, the tour. This was, I'm just going to share the photo with the two of us. This was taken at Tanglewood a couple summers ago. John invited me to be the conductor for the Star Wars in Concert tour, which was in 2010. It was an 11-week tour with an 82-piece touring orchestra. We went all over the country and into Canada and Mexico, doing concerts with the music from Star Wars and clips from the films. I'll play a brief excerpt from that. Let me get that one. Here is that. Let me do this. This is the opening of the concert. As you'll see, the orchestra is on stage, and there's lights, and this is just after the big fanfare, the 20th Century Fox fanfare. Sorry. So that was one of my favorite things to have been able to conduct and be part of. And the orchestra was absolutely extraordinary. Incredible group of musicians whom I've had a chance to collaborate with individuals over the years. In fact, one of the violinists in that tour became the concertmaster for the Knoxville Symphony in the last few years of my time there. So Bernstein always spoke about the fact that he loved conducting, but he was also composing. And as you know, he wrote music, West Side Story and Candide and On the Town and Wonderful Town, and his Serenade for Violin and I mean, so much music, his symphonies, 3 symphonies. He and the Chichester Psalms, if you sing in choir, you know the Chichester Psalms. The fact is that I have found for myself as a musical artist, I like to have a balance between the creative and the recreative. I consider conducting as the recreative and composing the creative. So I've had the opportunity in every position I've been, every organization I've been involved with, to write music for the musicians I'm working with. When I was with the Pittsburgh Symphony as assistant and resident conductor, I was there for 6 years, and in that time, I wrote. They played over 40 pieces and arrangements of mine in the 6 years, so I've actually literally written hundreds of pieces of music, many orchestral pieces, works for theater, works for film. And for me, that creative bent, it's beautiful for me to be able to write for people that I know. It's like writing a script and having an actor in mind, and you say, I know what this is going to sound like when this person speaks these words. When I was commissioned to write my oboe concerto for the Pittsburgh Symphony, I knew that the oboist, I knew what the oboist was going to sound like. And I also knew the people in the orchestra that were going to be playing it. I knew what the sound of the French horn was going to be, because Bill Caballero is an extraordinary French horn player. And so I had that in my ear as I was writing the notes for him to play. I was in Pittsburgh for 6 years, and then as assistant, I'll just go back a little bit. I know I'm kind of maybe rambling a little bit, but when I was in Los Angeles, and I had just been with the Young Musicians Foundation, I saw my friends, my conducting colleagues, not get orchestras. Like, they would audition and then they wouldn't become a conductor. I saw them all get married and start teaching and not have an orchestra. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I don't have, hi Bryce, if I don't have an orchestra by the time I'm 30, life is just going to be over. And so what happened when I turned 30, I didn't have an orchestra. I got married, which was beautiful. And I started teaching. I started a program, the music program, at the Milken Community High School in Sherman Oaks, and affiliated with Stephen Wise Temple. And for me, that was a very, very difficult time, because I thought, I'm not fulfilling what I was meant to do. But life's journey, as you know, takes you places where you don't expect to be. And those 4 years of working with middle school and high school students is probably one of the most impactful things that has happened to me in my life, in the fact that I learned how to communicate, first of all, with the kids of that generation, of that age, and knowing that I'm responsible for the musical journey of these kids, as my high school teacher was to me. Mr. Krasinski in high school was like, it gave me all these opportunities, and now I could be for these young people what Mr. K was to me. It was quite a responsibility, and I hadn't really embraced that or known that. When you're starting out and you think you're all that. Look, I had just conducted the Royal Albert Hall with Leonard Bernstein and blah 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 blah, and now I'm teaching 7th graders. It was a kick in the pants that I really needed to get.
Lucas, if I may ask a follow-up question with that, because that's really fascinating, because I found myself in a very, not the exact same situation, but where humility, the humility is finally what you need to further yourself and actually better yourself. And my question to you is, how is that humility that you felt in that moment, how has that affected you as a leader of a group of, however many are in each orchestra on each stage?
That's a great question, Brian. Thank you. I recently wrote a blog. You can read all my blogs at my website, lucasrichman.com. No subtle plug there, sorry. In which I talk about giving thanks. I wrote it in time for the, thanks for that, Brian. It was around Thanksgiving, and the idea was that unfortunately we have forgotten the word thank you, or the two words thank you, and not have we all only forgotten thank you. We've also forgotten the word please. And when one makes it a constant thing to say please and thank you, you're showing deference to the other person. It becomes a situation that it's not all about you, but in fact you're showing that you have respect for the other person. So humility comes in the way that you realize one makes mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, and I have to be culpable for my mistakes. I have to own my mistakes. And my job, I realize more and more, is not to be the star. My job is to help other people, facilitate other people doing what they do at the best of their capability. It's my job to nurture their inherent talents. And if I'm taking the spotlight away from them, then I'm doing my job wrong. The position of a conductor is a very strange occupation. I don't know of another thing like this. It's all about the sound, right? It's all about the music. Yet the conductor is the person that makes absolutely no noise, no sound. It's a very strange thing. And all we do is we forge these icons in the air to which people respond with music. You either play it loudly because of the gestures you see, or you play it softly. But it's all this kind of sleight of hand in a way that's done in a way to, again, bring out the best in people. I cannot abide conductors I watch who keep their eyes closed, who revel in the sound of the music that they're now conducting, because they're losing the contact with the very people that they're working with. It's not about the conductor, it's about the ensemble. And every subtle nuance that I do with my hand is anything that goes wrong, I take responsibility for. Musicians do not make mistakes on purpose. Now, it might sound like a silly little thing, but no one makes a mistake on purpose. I can make people make mistakes if I am not doing my job, if I'm not focused. A couple years ago, we were doing a Rossini overture, the Barber of Seville, and there's a horn arpeggio, that sort of thing, which is very delicate. And it's, anytime you play the French horn, you're walking a tightrope. Rehearsals all went really well. And when you're dealing with various parts of the orchestra, you have to negotiate when it is that you look at them and how you cue them and how you involve them, because they all have different peculiarities about the way that they make sound with their hands or with their mouths. And in the case of the horn section, you really don't want to stare down a brass player, because they've got a lot of pressure going on, and they will invariably cack. It'll, you don't want that to happen. So the idea is not to, because if you show tension, then the players are going to be tense. So in rehearsal, the violins have a melody, and I know that the horn solo is coming up. So it's, what I do is I'm here and I look at the horn player and acknowledge, yes, it's coming up, and then I look away. And in rehearsal, beautiful, perfect. And then in the performance, I was doing the violin thing, and I looked at the horn player 1 second too early. And I thought to myself, oh God, I ruined it. I knew, and as I turned over here, because I left him on his own, bum, 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 bum. And he came to me after the performance and he said, I'm so sorry about that. I said, it was not you. It was not you. It was me. And I felt it, and I knew in advance exactly what he was going to blow. I knew what was going to be wrong. That's where the humility comes in. It is about taking responsibility. And I find in leadership, the I know what my limits are and what my weaknesses are, and I acknowledge them. And when one can do that, then you're honest, and people accept that. I'm honest about what I'm not strong in. I have to come obviously prepared, and I have to do what I do well. But the fact is that there are people sitting in front of me who do things a lot better than I could ever do. I could never play the oboe. So, who am I to yell at an oboe player? I would never do that. Don't yell at the oboe player.
Yeah, authenticity, honesty, and humility is kind of the trifecta, right? Or the triangle, I should say, of leadership. And I really appreciate you sharing that. That really resonated with me, and I hope it resonated with others as well. I recognize our time, so I do want to move us on just a little bit. And I know we've just gone from a conversation of not talking about oneself, but I think it's important that you share about some of your own compositions. And if we can hear some of those, I find them so inspiring. Still, I will never forget The Day Is Done. That is the most beautiful lullaby CD, and we played it for Hayden. And I mean, day is done, so close your eyes. And I still remember it. I remember it to my core. I'll never forget it. And so that deeply impacted me and my family.
Wow.
So I'm wondering, as a composer, tell us all about that.
Well, composing is, I will play a couple things. Composing is really where I put my emotions onto the paper. And I've been really writing for over 4 decades, for every instrument, and for voice and chorus, and for film. I'm very fortunate because I've had just about every single piece played. A lot of people write music and it goes into a trunk, and I'm really, really so pleased that I've been able to get performances of things, and then have people ask me to write more pieces for them. I was commissioned to write a work, my piano concerto. In fact, let me put this here. My piano concerto is called In Truth, Concerto for Piano and Orchestra. And I wrote it at a time when I was having a difficult reconciling with what truth was. And this is actually back in 2013. And trying to figure out what my truth is, what other people's truths are, and then realizing, I have to believe in my own truth. So the piece is in 3 movements. It's in truth to one's self, to one's world, to one's spirit. And we were able to, we performed this in Pittsburgh. It was originally commissioned by the Knoxville Symphony. And there was a patron who came to me afterwards, after the performance, and he said, what do we have to do to record this? And I said, well, we need the Pittsburgh Symphony. So he wrote a check, and we were able to get a recording of the Pittsburgh Symphony playing In Truth. And that's with Jeffrey Beagle playing the piano. I have found that of late, my pieces are more and more about a particular subject, some social issue or philosophy that I'm trying to convey. And more recently, here in Maine, I was commissioned to write a piece in collaboration with the Maine Science Festival, exploring the effects that climate change is having on the Eastern Seaboard. So I spent a good 6 months meeting with scientists up and down the coast of Maine, from Bigelow Laboratory, the Maine fisheries, and it was incredible to learn about what was going on with the ocean and the Gulf of Maine, which you may not know is the fastest warming body of water in the world. So we were set to premiere a piece called The Warming Sea for orchestra, women's chorus, and children's chorus on March 23rd of 2019. Well, you might realize that that date kind of fell smack in the middle of when everything was being canceled. So it was canceled and we didn't get the premiere of The Warming Sea. But in this, Brian had asked me in preparation for this, what are you doing in these times of COVID as a performing ensemble? What can you do? So one of the things that we did do is we created a video of the last 3.5 minutes of the piece, The Warming Sea, which is an anthem sung by the kids and then the women's chorus, an anthem called Hope Begins with Truth. And that the idea, I wanted to make sure that the kids, we're talking about their future and climate change and what's going to happen with their world. So they look at the audience, they say, have you told your children the truth? They need to know. Things are changing. Things will not remain as they were. And this is the video that we did. We asked our friends in the orchestra and singers all over the country to participate in this. And so that's about it's about 3.5 minutes. If you look up Hope Begins with Truth, you'll find that video, Hope Begins with Truth, Bangor Symphony. And only just now are we beginning to perform together as an ensemble again. We have just produced our first concert. I'm going to play for you a little bit of the concert that is going to be released on Friday. So this is a preview. No one else has seen this yet. Containing 3 pieces: the Ernest Bloch Concerto Grosso for piano and strings, the Bach D minor piano concerto with Spencer Meyer playing the solo, and Florence Price, Andante Moderato from her string quartet. Beautiful, beautiful piece by this extraordinary African-American composer, Florence Price. Ernest Bloch, you might know as the composer of Shlomo and his Sacred Service. So it's not performing with a full orchestra in front of an audience yet. I don't know when we'll get there, but we are. One of the benefits, one of the silver lining kind of things is that we now can have people across the country subscribe to our concerts. Not a subtle advertisement here, because I'd love you to subscribe to the Bangor Symphony. So here is the first movement of the Ernest Bloch Concerto Grosso. Oh. So I thank you. I'm pleased with how it came out. This is our first foray into this sort of thing, but the concert came off beautifully. And Spencer Meyer was a dream to work with our soloist. So at bangorsymphony.org is the way to find out more about our concerts. So Brian, I know that there might be some questions.
Yeah, I have a few questions. I'm gonna take you actually off spotlight, so
sure,
everybody can kind of see everybody for this interactive piece. Lucas, that was incredible, outstanding, and thank you for sharing that. A couple of the questions that were asked, and I'm gonna scroll up in the chat. For your next concerto with full orchestration, what instrument would it be for?
I'm actually just completing, I've just finished last night the second movement, and I have one more movement to write of a new concerto for violin and cello. It is called Concerto for Violin and Cello, Un pasto con Luciana e Mario. A dinner, a meal with Luciana and Mario. This is commissioned in honor of two dear friends, originally from Italy. The son commissioned me to write this piece. Mario turns 100 next month. Luciana, unfortunately, is not with us anymore. So the three movements are movements of a meal, courses of a meal. It's primo, secondo, and dolce. So the orchestration for this, it's actually going to receive a preview performance next month with the Bismarck Mandan Symphony Orchestra in, where is it?
North Dakota?
Yes, thank you. Bismarck, North Dakota, yes. I was thinking Minnesota, but the music director is also involved with the orchestra in Minnesota. That's why I got confused. Yes, North Dakota. So she has asked me to do a reduced orchestration, so it's not a full orchestra. But eventually I will make it a larger orchestra when we're able to come back with bigger groups. I love writing for the full orchestra. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a little bit of a while before we're able to be back in that kind of form, because it's kind of tight on stage when we all play together.
Definitely. I mean, that's such a unique title as well. Little did you know that was the title of my next sermon, so I'm going to have to. No, I'm kidding.
Un pasto con
Yeah,
Brian and Melissa?
Oh, yeah, that's it. Sorry, bad joke. I'm known, unfortunately, for very bad jokes. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. If you could meet any composer at any time in history and spend the afternoon with that person, who might it be?
Brahms, Johannes Brahms, without a blink of an eye. I absolutely adore the music of Johannes Brahms. And for me, I feel like his music resembles, or I resemble, a lot of things qualities I see in his music. There's a real power to the music, but it's never a power of, haha, Tchaikovsky does that. But Brahms does, he's strong, but it's like, okay, but I kind of mean it, but I kind of don't, but I kind of do. And that's how I kind of, I feel about me as an artist, that it's powerful, but it's not just about empty bravado. And I love his music. So Brahms.
That's wonderful. I don't want to put you on the spot.
And it turns out, sadly, Brahms' Third Symphony was the last piece that I conducted for full orchestra back in November of 2019.
Wow.
I mean, it's so long already. It's over a year.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
And you think about the musicians who need to keep their craft up all this time while they're waiting to play together. The horn player who, was used to playing, weekly or monthly or whatever it is, now it's 2 years or something before he gets to play with other people. How many times can you buzz in your basement, keeping your embouchure ready? Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah, no question. Next question. I don't want to put you on the spot, Leonie, but would you like to ask your question actually personally by voice?
I would. I love this so much. So I'm a violist, and I started out on violin.
Awesome.
I'm from the back east. I'm from Hartford, Connecticut. So
terrific.
I feel very connected with all that you've said. I'm curious. Do you still play the fiddle? Or are you playing in chamber music before all of this happened? What do you do with the violin?
I don't play it really anymore. I take it out every now and then to make sure that the bridge hasn't collapsed. But it's one of those things that if, with the violin and the viola, I play viola as well. If you're not doing it, when you pick it up again, it just doesn't, it's not as appealing. And, and there are other people who do it much better than I.
It's neat that you're a violinist, as a conductor. That's always really helpful when you have like that.
I will say that this motion of the bow arm really affected the way that I learned my technique, because that fluidity that you have to get in the bow arm translated in a way that it doesn't happen for non-string players.
Yeah, and it's really nice as a string player to have a violinist as the conductor. That's really great too. So thank you very much. And just one last quick thing. How did you end up in Bangor? And what do they have there? What's the music scene there?
So I was invited to guest conduct here about a little over 10 years ago. And then I was invited to be part of their music director search. And I tell you that every time we'd land in Bangor, it was like there was just an incredible, beautiful feeling getting off the plane, and Debbie, my wife, and I just fell in love with this city. The music scene is actually, every August there's a American Folk Festival. There's a lot of Acadian music here, a terrific music scene, and indie rock and all kinds of things going on. The Bangor Symphony this year is celebrating its 125th anniversary. So the support that the community has given to music and to this ensemble is really extraordinary. It's been a big part of the scene, and the city is only, I think, 30,000 people. I mean, but we playing now with the Bangor Symphony, we have people coming from all over. It's not just people who live in Bangor. People travel as far from New York. Our first flutist lives in Canada. Our concertmaster lives in Galveston. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's the traveling musician thing.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi, and thank you so much. Really, Maestro, it was great.
Thank you. Thank you.
This was so wonderful. Nancy, I know you had something that you wanted to share.
Well, I had looked up Lucas Richman, not knowing who he was, what he did, and saw that his father had just passed away within the last month. And I just wanted to express my condolences.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Nancy. My father, Peter Mark Richman, you might know as an actor, and he was just shy of his 94th birthday. And he was an extraordinary force as an artist, and he was a devoted father. I have, in my family, we've got 5 kids, 4 boys and 1 girl. And growing up from a very rough life in South Philadelphia, born in 1927, that he became the TV star, and took care of his family in a really beautiful way. Very un-Hollywood. We were raised in the San Fernando Valley, and we were not in Beverly Hills. It was just a very suburban upbringing. Oh yeah, and Daddy works at the studio. So.
But you were part of Stephen Weiss, which was a pretty upscale place.
Well, he actually, no, we weren't members there. Debbie was, Debbie's family. But the fact is that he was, thank you for mentioning that, because there's an outpouring all over the world in recognition of my father. So it was very, very touching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll miss Peter Mark for sure. What a fascinating guy. I was always mesmerized by him. Always.
Well, and he, all his shows are still running.
Yeah.
So if you ever watch Three's Company, that he was Suzanne Summers' father, the Reverend Snow, and all kinds of stuff. There's a Twilight Zone that pops up, or this and that. So I get to see my dad all the time.
Mm. Oh, what a blessing.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, my friends, I believe we are out of time for tonight. An enormous thank you to you, Lucas.
Absolutely.
This was a brilliant treat for all of us. We have a very musical congregation. We have a congregation that loves to learn, and to combine the two, and people enthusiastic about combining those two, love of music and love of learning. It's you saw that tonight. Friends, I've posted information about Lucas's website and his YouTube channel and all stuff Lucas in the chat. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or want to learn more. But again, Lucas, what a privilege it was for us.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I'd be happy to do it again. And if I were to do it again, I'd be happy to curtail it, in a certain way, to answer questions in a particular, more directed subject, if you like. So,
I will take you up on that offer
okay.
time and again. I'm sure nobody would complain about that.